talking about wildness. I was just working on a song, and one of the lyrics that I was writing was, listen to the wildness within, listen to the wildness pulsing. And it just got me thinking, what is that wildness, and why does it sometimes feel so hard to act upon, even though it's instinctual? Okay, so wildness to me is the urges that I feel, the sensations in my body, some sort of longing in my chest to return to nature, to howl, to connect with a tribe. And yeah, it's really interesting because wildness is suppressed in this society everywhere from a young age onward. Something that's popping into my head right now is when you're a kid and you have to pee. And maybe it's right after lunch and you just didn't pee at lunch because you were having fun, and you ask your teacher if you can pee and they say no, you can't. You have to hold it in. And it's like this bodily urge. Your body's just saying, let me pee, let me release this liquid from my body. And because of the way things are set up, the teacher says no. And so we learn from a very young age onward to suppress our instincts, to suppress our body's needs, and become completely mind over matter, So to the point that wildness often feels foreign because we're socialized out of it. We're socialized to not be in our bodies, to do the opposite of literally the opposite of what our bodies are saying. If our bodies are saying pee, no, hold it in. And something that animals do in the wild is when they experience trauma, when they're scared, maybe they're hunting and then they like kill an animal, or an animal almost kills them. After anything traumatic, they'll shake it off, shake off whatever happened, because there's energy moving through them, that adrenaline rush from fear, something in their body that they're moving through, and then they can let it go and move on with their lives and be in their bodies. But what are we as humans socialized to do when we experience trauma? Clench. Just the opposite of shake. Just clench and tense every muscle in our body and hold it in. Literally suck it in. Don't feel it. Don't let it wash over you. Don't move through it. Which is why so many of us are holding on to traumas that then are affecting our physical and emotional and energetic bodies. And yeah, I have so much of this. And so with wildness, it's like when something in me is triggered, and being at home with family, a lot of times my response is anger. And what my wild self wants to do is scream or hit something or like spin around. But that's not acceptable in a lot of places. And I know this is something I've talked about before and think about a lot, but it's just the most important thing in my life right now is to find ways to lean into that wildness. Because quite frankly, unless we find a way to get back to the earth and find a way to feel things that we're moving through, then the human race is not going to survive. I don't know what things are going to look like a few years down the line even. But what I know for myself, what's true is that finding ways to experience my wildness is the only thing that's helping me feel alive, the only thing that's helping me heal my depression and my anxiety, and allowing me to find greater pleasure and opening in my life, is realizing that I am wild and I am of the earth, and that I am now allowed to listen to my body's needs, even though maybe I wasn't for a long time. Yeah, but it has taken some time, and I am in the midst of this process, like in the thick of it, like feeling my wildness and all of that. But it has taken a lot of time for me to even get in touch with the subtle things that my body is saying, because we have such distinct lines between good and evil in this culture, that certain feelings are good, other ones are bad, certain acts are good, certain acts are bad, but in reality, it's all a spectrum. The light and the dark, it's all part of a spectrum, and these labels of good and evil really repress things that our animal bodies, our wild selves are aching to feel. So wildness. I'm just thinking of a child. I was at the beach with my cousins and their kids last week, and some of the little ones were like learning how to surf on a foam board, and I was also learning how to surf on that foam board. But the one of the little boys just like took off his clothes, just like, oh, I'm done, and just like took it off. That's wildness. That's what I want to do at the beach too. I just want to take off my clothes and swim in the ocean. I just want to like be able to have that freedom. But I think that like looking at really, really young children is often a way to remind us of that wildness. Just like the crying, the screaming, the pooping, just like how it all kind of happens. And of course, as we grow, we learn that there are places to do these things and ways to handle them. And I think that in part it makes sense, like having some sort of organization and direction around all of our bodily needs. But the severe repression of so many emotions and of so many instincts means that they're just going to come out in other, often really violent ways. If we think about crime, if we think about some of the most heinous crimes out there in the world, it comes from, my understanding is repressing lots of things, being taught that like that we're not allowed to feel these things, and then they come out in a really perverse way. And it's interesting thinking about like criminals and what distinguishes a criminal from not a criminal. Well, they acted upon things that so many people think about. And then they're labeled as bad, and our prison system just gives up on them like that. And I think that a really heinous crime is a deep expression of wildness, and I'm not condoning those types of crimes at all, or any crime. But what I'm saying here is that like just figuring out a way to shift the society we live in, to shift the world. And in my experience with my own emotions, when I invite in darkness, when I invite in my wildness, when I invite in things that I am terrified of, then I look them in the eye and I'm no longer afraid of them, and I don't have this frenetic urge to be compulsive and act upon something, because I invited it in and I welcomed it, and I can sit with it and then release it and choose to act on love and light and beauty and warmth and connection and intimacy and good food, and just bring in all the love and the light. Also, the philosophers Foucault and Derrida talk about the panopticon, which is a structure in some prisons where it's in the middle, it's a big guard tower, and then there are prison cells surrounding it. And so there's a guard in the tower, and at any moment that guard could be looking at the imprisoned people, but the imprisoned people cannot see when the guard's looking at them. So they probably assume that he or she is looking at them at all times. And so the Foucault and Derrida, they talk about how this idea of the panopticon plays out in the world with self-regulation, because we've been like trained to suppress a lot of our wildness, and so even when no one's actually looking at us, no one's watching us, there's no one there that is going to tell us that we have to hold in our pee because we didn't go at lunch, we're going to do it anyway, because we are so accustomed to being censored that we start to self-censor. But I'm tired of wildness being repressed, and in so many areas of my life I feel like I'm breaking out of that with having body hair, and with something really incredible that I went to this school in Colorado called Naropa University for 1 year, and it was lots of things, but yeah, definitely a very soulful experience. And our first week there, something that the friends I made, these instant soulful connections, something that we did was talking with no words, where we were just it was at night, we were just in a room, and we were all like making sounds, just like just making sounds with the energy that we were feeling. And it was so healing because it really helped me get out of my mind, the reason, the logical, the logos, and into my body, because there was no pressure to articulate anything in a clear way that made quote unquote sense, but rather it was all about feeling the energy and expressing it through sound. And it was beautiful, and I would love to do more of that because it felt wild, but it also felt safe. And it's important, I think, to make wildness feel safe and to make sure that it is safe, because in a lot of spaces it doesn't feel safe to express our wildness. And so I'm pushing, little by little, pushing the boundaries of where it feels safe for me to express my wildness. Like, it's been a huge journey with body hair of like feeling safe now in every situation pretty much to have my body hair, but for lots of other things, it's not safe to just scream in a grocery store if I am feeling angry. So it's like finding those spaces that do feel safe and finding community that wants to delve into wildness together. Yeah, because that can be really healing. Yeah, and also wildness in a sexual sense, which I'm just going to touch upon briefly. There's this incredible interview that was from the Explore More Summit, which I talked about in a different video, and I think I referenced this video too, but it was with Leonore Chia, and she talked about rewilding your sexuality, and like, what does it mean to be clean and pure? What is this idea of virginity, and how do we like let ourselves be wild in our sexuality and be what quote unquote dirty, and but in a way that's very instinctual and not like, oh, this is something that I saw in porn or something that I think that is hot or something that I think is dirty in a hot way, like not that, but rather, or that if we want it, it's kind of like expanding the boundaries of sexuality, but also what are we, like what is our relationship to our sexual selves, and exploring that, and kind of pushing the boundaries of light and dark in a sexual sense. And that could be with ourselves or with our partners, and yeah, it's something that I also want to explore more of. Explore More Summit. And yeah, that is all I have to say about wildness. I want to keep exploring my wildness and connecting with others who are willing to explore theirs as well. Thank you. Goodbye. Be wild. Just stepped on an earring. How's that for wildness? Oh. Blood free.